So now I will go into a little bit more about the event. This presentation emphasizes the importance of maintaining language diversity in bilingual children in the US. Children's home language development significantly impacts their cognitive, emotional, and sociocultural growth, as well as their English language development, academic success, and family communication. Today's presentation has two main goals. First, it explores the challenges faced by bilingual children, such as potential language loss and misdiagnoses of language impairments. Second, it discusses strategies for parents, teachers, and peers to support bilingual children's language development in both home and school environments. Additionally, it highlights the clinical significance of nurturing both languages to identify language impairments. And before we get going, I'm just going to pass it over to my colleague, Erin, now.
Thank you, Marisha. Welcome, everyone. I'm so pleased to be here. My name is Erin Cunningham-Ritter. I am the Director of Wellness and Employee Engagement in the College of Arts and Sciences. And before we kick things off with today's session, we'd like to invite you all to take a moment to reflect on your relationship to this land of Boulder and the relationship to local Indigenous communities. And would like to just pause and recognize that we're guided by the University of Colorado's land acknowledgement, which I will recite now. The University of Colorado Boulder honors and recognizes the many contributions of Indigenous peoples in our state and in stewardship to land before the establishment of the state into this present moment. CU Boulder humbly acknowledges that it is located on the traditional and current homelands of the Cheyenne, Arapaho, Ute, and many other Native nations and communities. The violent forced removal of Native people from these territories has caused devastating and lasting impacts. These histories have brought us to the present moment wherein the University of Colorado Boulder is determined to commit to improving and enhancing relationships with all Indigenous communities and issues locally and globally. We will do this by recognizing and amplifying the voices of Indigenous CU Boulder students, staff, and faculty and their work. We will do this by educating, conducting research, supporting student success, and integrating Indigenous knowledge. And we will do this by consulting, engaging, and working collaboratively with Native communities to enhance our ability to provide access and culturally sensitive support and to recruit, retain, and graduate Native students in a climate that is inclusive and respectful. Thank you for allowing me to take that portion to read the land acknowledgement, and I'd like to turn things over to Marisha to introduce our speaker for today.
Hello again. So I did put some links in the chat for you all that have to do with the land acknowledgement in case you want to educate yourself a little bit more about that. So I will now be introducing you all to our speaker, Dr. Pui Fong Kan. Dr. Pui Fong Kan is an associate professor in the Department of Speech, Language, and Hearing Sciences at the University of Colorado Boulder. Her research focuses on clinical issues related to her background as a licensed speech-language pathologist. Her main area of research centers on language development in both typically developing bilingual children and bilingual children with language impairments. Her ongoing projects explore clinical assessment and intervention for bilingual children. Welcome, Dr. Kan.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm so honored to be here today and talk with you about a topic that I'm really, really interested in. It's about bilingualism. Let me share the screen with you. So how am I going to? Okay, so before we start, I hope, can you guys see my PowerPoint?
Yes, we can see it. Yep, we can see it. Perfect.
It's good now. Okay. So before we start, I want to know a little bit about you and if you are bilingual. And can you raise your hands if you are bilingual? So yeah, many of us are, and some of you might be kind of what we're going to talk about today probably will resonate with you about bilingualism. We'll talk a little bit about the benefits and the challenges and some of the strategies to kind of help for preserving heritage language. And before we start, I want to actually kind of talk a little bit about who are we talking about, right? So talking about bilingualism. Lots of people think about bilingualism is this, okay? So it's the first group of this group of children and adults and who learn two languages from a very early on. For many of them, like growing up in a family speaking two languages. And so you see that two arrow representing that this kid learning two languages at the very beginning at the same time. It could be like Japanese and English, speaking two languages at the same time and continue on throughout the child's life. And it could be learning a second language during childhood. We call this group of kids early sequential bilingual children. So think about an example for this is that a child growing up in a Spanish-speaking homes and then started to learn English in school. And then this child continue using two languages throughout her life, okay? Now, this timeline could be a little later. Think about child immigrants. They come to this country later on, say at the age of 10, they started to learn English at that point. But then children can actually pick up language really quickly. So in that sense that this child kind of continue learning two languages, can continue speaking two languages. And this child's also called early sequential bilingual. Now, another group of bilingual, it might be, some people might not call them bilingual, but they are bilingual because they use two languages in their daily lives. These bilinguals called late sequential bilinguals. And think about a child kind of learning Chinese, as a child and continue learning until going to college, coming to the US and learning, using English and Chinese at the same time. So then these group of individuals are also considered bilingual, and because they use two languages in their daily lives. The difference from this group of bilingual and the previous two are this group of individuals, they might speak language differently with accent, but then they have a very strong skills in their first language, okay? And so one of this actually pretty interesting idea about bilinguals is I always hear people say bilinguals are minorities. But if you look at the number of people in the world who are bilingual, we're certainly not minorities. It has been estimated that about 50 to 65% of the world population, 50 to 65% of population are actually bilingual or monolingual, multilingual. And so they are certainly not minority. So what about the US? In the US, like nearly 68 million people speak a language other than English at home. And we're talking about 1 in 5, which is kind of a big number of people who are, speaking a minority language at home and then speaking English in school. Now, today we can actually just kind of talk about a few things. About the first thing is we talk about the benefits of bilingualism, which is kind of a way to really encourage us to understand, some of the good things being speaking two languages. And then we would kind of ask a question about why do so many people who stop speaking their heritage language. And we would end this talk with 5 things to do to encourage your children to speak your home language at home. Okay, and so the benefit of bilingualism is an interesting topic. It holds a special place in my heart because it addresses a curious paradox. Why do so many individuals growing up in a family where a minority language is spoken yet not being bilingual? And in the past, bilingualism thought to be potentially harmful to language development until about 30, 40 years ago. It's kind of a research started to kind of look into this and looking at factors like, controlling for social, economic status and gender, and then finally find out, hey, it's not the case. Bilingual, it's not really hurting children, actually has a lot of benefits. And so as this picture actually kind of is showing that like many people, including me when I was a child, when some of my friends actually kind of think about it would be really, really great to be bilingual, to be able to speak 2 languages. Why? I think this quote actually coming from my friend Melissa, and she actually said that she's grateful to be raised speaking 2 languages. And because it gives her like deeper understanding her own culture and the culture of others, and also it help her to be open-minded and to appreciate different perspectives. And I can see that those who are bilingual here probably would feel, similar, having similar feelings about, being able to speak 2 languages. So let's that lead to the benefit number 1. The number 1 is the cross-linguistic and cross-cultural communications. Now, before we actually started talking about, let's talk about think about these 2 kids and, think about what they think about cross-cultural communications.
Los beneficios de hablar diferentes idiomas. It has provided me the ability to communicate and understand people and cultures from around the world. Now, I love to travel and have an opportunity to sit and talk with others. It's like the TV competition of The Amazing Race, where you're traveling from one country to the next, conociendo gente de diferentes culturas y hablando diferentes idiomas. This is a great way to share our ideas with each other and make our world a better place. Thank you.
So as these kids actually point out, there are a lot of really good things about being bilingual. And also, I think, for those who are bilingual would understand, bilinguals can actually bridge language barriers. You can actually help to help people to communicate, in addition to traveling, all this good stuff. And also, since they can communicate in a broader range of people, they actually can develop kind of a broader social networks. And you can actually make friends who speak Spanish, and also English, if you are Spanish-English bilingual. And these are you have a stronger social networks. And you can also kind of understand culture pretty well, right? And then so that you have a better understanding of, because language actually tied to culture, you can have a better understanding of the culture and appreciation for diversity. And this second benefit, number 2, is it's is economic values of bilingualism. So think about language as a human capital, right? And being able to speak 2 languages actually kind of really increase your increase your human capital. And in fact, there's one recent study kind of interview different employers, ask them about across different sectors and ask them about how well they want to how much they want to hire somebody who are bilingual. In fact, the majority of them actually agree that they want to hire a bilingual. So actually it is, for bilinguals, actually, this is a huge opportunities for having different kind of job opportunities. Now, in my field, we are a speech language pathologist, and if you look at the percentage of the the potential bilinguals in populations in the U.S., they're about 21%, and in our field, we have only 6% of this speech language pathologists are identified as bilingual. So if you see the number of bilinguals actually who are kind of bilinguals who serve as a service provider, and we just don't have enough speech language pathologists serving the diverse population in the U.S. So if you speak two languages, you have huge opportunities, to be, working in different places in the U.S. as a speech language pathologist. So the number 3 actually is a large one. Okay, so I would spend some time talking about the enhanced cognitive performance here, because there's a lot of research in the past 20, 30 years actually looking at bilingual advantage in terms of the cognitive performance. And so think about children who speak 2 languages or adults who speak 2 languages, right? And they also actually having
problems when you're bilingual.
Challenges too.
Can't say it in English.
So this, right? So bilinguals always have to, they have 2 languages in their brain, and the 2 languages always active. And then you have to choose which language you use. And in certain contexts, you might have difficulty retrieving word in a certain language, right? So we are talking about, for bilinguals, they have to make decisions, between 2 languages and switch 2 languages constantly. So what happened is that this kind of a long, long time of kind of you have to choose between 2 languages, switching 2 languages actually strengthen your brain, strengthen many different areas of the brain, which is monolinguals. The people who speak only 1 language do not have to do, because if you look at these actually, so certain part of the brain got strengthened, right? So, as we see in this picture, and so it's just like you're doing exercise all the time, right? So think about this, if you do that all the time, you do certainly your brain change, your brain become like a little bit different, right? So here's the, a study that I want to share with you.
So we invited 3 groups of children that were aged 8 to 10. And we had a group of children who were monolinguals, a group of children who had early exposure to Greek and English from birth. They were our early bilinguals. And finally, we had a group who had been exposed to English between the ages of 2 and 5, and they were our later bilinguals. So what we did that no one had done before was that we asked the children to lie in the scanner while doing nothing and just staring at a cross. And during this, we measured their brain activity. So what we found that was really exciting for us is that our early bilingual group had the strongest connectivity in the network at rest. And this group of regions are regions that light up when we're doing nothing and just mind wandering. A little bit like if you're going to the gym every day, your muscles might look bigger at rest. Well, similarly, your brain might be better connected at rest because you are learning a language early. And this is something no one had found before.
And there's more. One lesser known.
So what I kind of want to show you is the kind of what that study did is like actually consistently across different studies that using 2 languages enhance certain parts of the brain, and that actually become, perhaps more efficient to use certain cognitive skills. So another perspective looking at using two languages constantly is that individuals would be able to understand the language differences so well, so then they become like more sensitive to certain language features. And what does that really lead to? So that would lead to better attention skills. That's the cognitive benefits is better attention skills, better ability to inhibit the language that they don't use, right? And then better skills to switch because they switch to languages. They have a better switching task. So where this actually, studies actually, these conclusions are coming from. I want to kind of show you that this is kind of one of the early experiments that's been done to, reaching these conclusions about bilingual's advantage, okay?
A study conducted by researchers where bilingual and monolingual children were asked to sort shapes and colors revealed that bilingual children were faster at sorting items compared to monolingual children, who tended to react slower when shapes were added.
So this is actually the conclusion actually coming from it, these experiments, right? Researchers using different experiments to really, looking at bilinguals and actually kind of lead to the conclusions bilingual has a better attention skills and problem-solving skills. Why is the case? Because they use they always have to make decisions about language use, the context, and these processes actually sharpen their ability to think critically. So that will lead to better problem-solving skills. Another one actually is still ongoing. So I added a little bit more information about it. It's called like lifelong cognitive reserve. What does that mean? Well, if you actually constantly monitor two languages and you have to switch back and forth in your lifetime, what does it really mean? It means actually that that gives you lots of exercises, right? And so it might actually help you to create some kind of a protective factors against aging, right? And so they actually might have, so bilinguals might have a better cognitive buffer against age-related decline, and also some diseases like Alzheimer's disease, and some research actually shows that there's a decline in onset of Alzheimer's disease. Okay, and the number 4, the benefit number 4 is the social flexibilities, right? What is social flexibility? It's the ability to switch between social environments and accurately interpret social cues. So bilingual may have a better advantage because they switch all the time. We switch to languages, to cultures. For example, I speak English at home with my family, and my need to really switch to Chinese when my mom comes to visit me, right? My mom must only speak Cantonese. So this requires me to be able to quickly assess the new social situation to adjust my behaviors accordingly. Okay. And so benefit number 5, which is kind of it kind of related to be able to understand other people's thoughts. So this line of research actually coming from like experiments look like this. So I want to kind of show you this experiment. Then we talk about how they come up with a idea of that bilingual has a better understanding of others.
And this is Sally. This is Sally and Anne's basket and box. And one day, Sally and Anne were playing with a block in their house. And then Sally decided to put the block in the box. Then she decided to go outside and play where she couldn't see or hear anything, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Anne, that tricky Anne, decided to take the block and put it in the basket. Now, since Sally is outside, did she see Anne move the block? No, she didn't, did she? So when Sally comes inside, where will she think the block is? She'll think it's in there. Why will she think it's in there? Because it's in there. Okay.
So for this child, she was not able to figure it out, right? And so so research actually shows that for bilingual children, they actually can achieve, they should be able to kind of figure it out that the block actually is in another container, not this one. So bilingual would perform better in this kind of environment. And researchers believe that they have a better performance because they actually have to always switch to languages, and they actually have a better understanding of other people's thoughts and beliefs. And so, and then they also always have to kind of resolve some kind of conflicts between two languages. So they have a better better perspectives on other people's thoughts. So that's a benefit number 5. So benefit number 6 is creativity. So how do we study creativity? Well, I think that this is a Torrance test is one of the tests that's been used to study creativity. What it does is start with giving the participants some kind of a simple circle and shapes and ask them to draw, right? And so as you see that there are some kind of one is more like a kind of a better creativity, they actually draw a lot of really interesting things in it, versus less creativity, you just kind of see something kind of a less sophisticated, right? And so research actually shows that bilinguals has better creativity as a group. Of course, there's a varies across many different people, but bilingual tend to have a better performance in drawing these pictures. And so because another thing is that bilingual actually can, because they have two different, they have words and concepts in two different languages, that actually help them to think about ideas in different ways and to be able to come up with new ideas and solutions to the problem. And bilinguals are also exposed to different cultures to give them broader perspective of the world. And we just actually can help them to be more creative, and as they draw on a wider range of ideas and experiences. Okay. And here's the thing, there's another one, is a bonus one for you that you should know about the benefit of bilingual in terms of, we talk about many different areas in terms of the cognitive and social and cultural benefits. So the number 7 is that I want to kind of point out that more research is needed, because there are studies they find mixed results in different areas of the bilingual's performance. So at this point, it's nothing is really conclusive, but more research is needed. And so, but what we know is that there are so many different good things about being bilingual, right? And the next question is this question actually really close to my heart, is why so many monolingual families stop speaking their heritage language. So, and if you kind of look at the number, it's not speaking their home language. It's think about 69% among US born Hispanics and 34% of third generation Hispanics speak Spanish, right? So meaning that there's a big group of people, they do not speak the heritage language. If you look at the Asian, the numbers are relative, even lower, and nearly 2/3 of the US born Asians and speak only English at home. Why is the case, right? And so So I want to kind of show you this video. I think it's a kind of really interesting kind of highlight. Sometimes you have to switch the language to fit to the environment. Oh, that does not really work really well here. I think this is really fun. Okay, so I think this one, I'm still sharing. Okay.
What's the name? Shen Yi Zhang. Shen Yi Zhang? How do you spell that? Oh, never mind. Sam. Sam.
So it happened to me a lot. Oh, sorry. I didn't see the question here. So I saw some question.
There have been a few things in the chat, but if you want, we can address those
Yeah.
at the end.
Oh, okay. So let me see. I think this is actually very good. I mean, I can go back to this question since we're talking about benefits. I think these questions are about benefits. Sorry, I didn't know your questions. I keep talking because I didn't really see the box when I kind of the PowerPoint take over my screen. So the first question is, does it matter what skill level of bilingualism we have? Also, does ASL and other sign languages count? I am sure they should count. I want to answer the second question first. ASL, yes, it counts. And in fact, I think they use kind of a similar processes to, in terms of like the selection of using which language, right? Selection of the language and processing two languages at the same time. And two languages are always active, right? And then, so the choose of using ASL or English, depending on the context. So the bimodal bilingual, who use ASL in English, they have to choose which language they use depending on the social context of which language is speaking, right? In that environment. So in that sense, it's very similar to ASL and and two languages are similar. The first question is, does it matter skills level of bilingualism? Yes. If you think about the cognitive benefits, how bilingual having two languages active all the time, right? So two languages has been like active, like they are active all the time. So if one language is much, much stronger than the other, so the stronger language probably would active a little bit more, right? And then the weaker language probably would be less active, right? They're still active, but probably would be easier to inhibit, right? Versus the two languages who are equally strong. So you probably need to, to make decisions perhaps differently, right? From the previous, the first one who has, who have stronger language skills in one. And so studies actually shows that early sequential bilingual children or simultaneous bilinguals, so they use the two languages actually, because they use two languages, right? They create that kind of a network, very different from the monolinguals. And so for the late sequential bilinguals who has much stronger language skills in one language, but weaker language in the other, so they actually developed a kind of a network, slightly different. Mostly they require the brain to really monitor, to use which language to use. So you use more like, think about your brain as a boss. So your boss has become like stronger to really monitor which language to use, because of the one language is kind of a, much stronger than the other. So yeah, I think that the results actually shows that the level of bilingualism actually, they are different. The second question is, I wonder if the economic value of bilingualism would be affected by the generative AI and other technologies, which just allow people easily translate languages. Possibly. However, actually, this is kind of something I've been thinking about recently a lot about generative AI. And some of you actually, if you have comments, and please jump in to help me with this one, because I'm not an AI expert in this. And so the I think the AI translation is one thing. I think bilingual does much more than translation. So bilingual actually communicate with two groups, language groups of people. They understand the culture, right? So bilinguals actually can do a lot more, like what we just talked about. Like, they are more flexible in terms of creativity, right? And they are flexible in working with human, right? And then so it's not completely a translator. So so I would say maybe not. I don't think that AI, at least at this point, I don't think AI will replace some of the jobs at this point, with AI. But you might have a different idea. So yeah, thanks for that question. All right, so any other questions? All right, and I also want to know, actually, I was kind of wondering, but it might be all these are the videos I have. Never mind, because I actually was wondering if you actually can hear the video well, but
I can hear it well. There's an issue with like the audio sort of not going along perfectly with the visual, but I can hear it.
Okay, all right, good, thank you. So I want to kind of show you about this. I think this video we talk about was really interesting because
Shen Yi Zhang.
How do you spell that?
Oh, never mind, Sam.
So it happened to me a lot. This is that, like, so this context, there's nothing wrong with either one of them. I think it's just the context make us feel like okay, never mind, here's my English name, right? And I think that it happens a lot to us, and so, but I want to kind of explain kind of this bigger context and why why this is actually, why do so many minority families stop speaking their heritage language at home? The first one is a misinformation. So misinformation is really huge, because if we hear your neighbors and maybe the teachers in the school saying, well, if you speak two languages to your child, and it's likely you're going to have, your child's going to be confused, or it would lead to like language disorders. And in fact, last week I had like 2 former students coming to my class and talking about their clinical experience, and one of them actually said that, yeah, they got this all the time, doctor's note saying that we have to see this child, making kind of to do assessment to this child, because I quote her to say, this is the reason: language disorders due to bilingualism. So this is actually kind of information that we have to deal with all the time. Is wrong. Bilingualism does not really cause language disorders, but this information is still floating around, and still floating around by the experts who are supposed to know about, child development and language disorders, and it's not the case. So if you are parents, you probably would feel like, hey, I am really afraid, like, my child is getting language disorders. Now I have to choose one. If I have to choose one language, I have to choose English because my child is going to be like, studying in the school. And so misinformation actually is a big, big factor kind of affecting the decision of the families using the heritage language at home. The second reason is that a lot of family wanted to kind of fit in. They try to be, I want to assimilate. I want to be able to speak English well so that I can be better fit in this environment. And so there's nothing wrong with that, but then that actually would lead to their decision of not speaking their heritage language at home. You think about kids, they don't hear enough, they won't be able to speak the heritage language. The third one is the pressures in the school, and lots of the time in school, and because in many schools, actually English is the dominant language, and so it is, the kids would kind of feeling pressure that they have to speak English, and then at the same time that the child, if they speak a lot of English, they would have like lower some of them may experience language loss, losing their home language. So these two together actually kind of becoming the child kind of growing up, even though they started to speak, say, Vietnamese at home, they will lose Vietnamese and started to speak more English because of the pressures at home and in school. Now, the last one, the next one is about like the limited social networks. Many of minority families living in a place that they might not be able to find the community speaking that language. Say, I would have a hard time finding any, but I live in Boulder for 15 years. I have not seen anybody speaking Cantonese here. So if I had a child, it would be hard for me to find my community speaking that language with my child. The last one is about discrimination and stigmatism. So what is that? Well, if you actually kind of experience like discrimination against my language, then I feel like ashamed to speak the language. And I started to be like not speaking it, right? So in fact, half of the US Hispanics who do not speak Spanish, they actually have been shamed because of it. And that's kind of a really, a big part of it is that, it actually makes you feel bad speaking your heritage language. That's why so many minority families, they do not speak their heritage language. Now, the next question here is, how do we encourage our children to speak the heritage language? The first one is to create a language-rich environment. Think about language is just, the language in the environment is a whole bunch of like data around, like floating around, right? If the kids actually can hear a lot about this language, they would learn, the small pieces of the language, put them together. It's like, they would actually help them to learn their home language, their heritage language. The language-rich environment, including, like books is a big part of it. If you can get some of the books in your heritage language, and that would be good. Sometimes it might not be easy to find, but some families actually told me that they can actually find it from their home country. They ship it to here, or they can actually, after they use these books, and then they can actually donate and share with their other families. So books is a big part of it. And TV, I think these days actually relatively easier to really get TV that speaking language other than English through like different kind of streaming services. And well, but watching TV has to be like in a way that has to be, you know, helping the child. So if you put the child just in front of the TV, it's not going to help. So you have to watch TV with the child. So you can watch a TV program or a movie with a child, and then after that, you can talk about it. If the TV and the movie actually is in your home language, this is a great. You can actually kind of talking about it, you know, after viewing that show. Celebrate cultural traditions, and sometimes these could be really fun for young kids. Think about going to like Chinese New Year and celebrate with your friends and families, and, you know, talking about different food and tradition in your heritage language, and that provide a really rich context, you know, working with you know, to enrich your kids' language experience. And another thing is that, and sometimes you can actually talk with the teachers and in school, and then teachers sometimes might be interested in invite you to come and talk about your culture and your traditions, and that might be actually kind of a real kind of a help to kind of a bridge the cultural understanding and appreciation. And another thing is that create a positive and supportive environment for language learning. What I mean by here is that kids are very smart. They pick up like tiny little like signals. If you do not like your home language, if you do not, you feel like you don't want to talk about, like, you know, speak in your heritage language, kids pick it up. So I think that, you know, creating a positive environment can really help your child subtly, right? And how they would view their own heritage language and proud of their heritage language. The next thing is to connect with the local community of speakers of heritage language. If you can find a group of people and then the kids can have a chance to practice, and then kids can kind of play with their friends and using their home heritage language, and that would be great. Another one is to be patient and encouraging, and because sometimes when kids started to learn English, they have to, and then they have all kinds of things happening in school, which is we don't know, and they would kind of suddenly stop speaking the heritage language. Then you know, then she might come home and not speaking the language or refuse to speak the language. And so be patient and be positive, because knowing that this is kind of could be just a period of time your child is experiencing, and your child would not be losing the language just that. So if you be patient, continue speaking your heritage language with your child, and that would actually kind of continue providing the environment for the child continue to learn. So these are the simple things that we could do, you know, really to help to help kids to learn, continue to learn and develop their heritage language. Now, I leave you with some references here, but I want to have some time for questions. Oh, so I see some question here now.
I had put in the chat, it wasn't really a question, just what you were talking about earlier with challenges with, you know, keeping that that minority language. It really spoke to me in my experience, because I know for a fact I only spoke Spanish up until I was about 4, maybe 5 or so. And as I was getting ready for elementary school, my mom was being told, this is not good. She should not, you know, you don't want her going into English as a second language classes or anything like that. You want her to just speak English because we were living in the United States at the time. And so my parents very quickly and made a very deliberative decision to switch me over to English. I was only allowed to watch English, TV. I was only allowed to speak English. And I don't know if they regret the decision as much as I do, because I feel like it's really sort of shortchanged me. But I also know they wouldn't have made that decision if they knew what people know today.
Yeah, I think today there are still a lot of families making the same decision. But I think also more people actually kind of be aware that, the benefits of being a bilingual. So yeah, I think that, hopefully it would change, as we are more aware of the benefits of bilinguals, because like what I earlier said, that lots of the time, in the past, people tend to kind of going against bilingualism, and for many different reasons, the cognitive reasons and social economics reasons, is speaking only one language. And I hope that actually would change as we actually more aware of the benefits.
We have a question in the chat. We have someone with their hand raised. So we'll go to the hand raised first. Alberto.
Yeah, no, very good presentation so far. So I have a similar story, but it applied to my mom. So I was born and raised in Puerto Rico all my life, but my mom is also born and raised in Puerto Rico, but my mom's mom, my maternal grandmother, she was born in Canada, and Newfoundland, and she moved to Puerto Rico in 1963 at 20 years old, and never really taught my mom any English, despite English being one of the co-official languages in Puerto Rico. And my mom, as a result, never really learned any English as growing up. And it was funny because years later, when she moved to the United States and had to learn English through ESL courses before returning to Puerto Rico, she once asked my grandmother, "Mommy, why didn't you ever take the time to teach me any English?" To which she replied, "I was too busy learning Spanish." And it's stuck with her and me.
Right. And I think you actually kind of share your experience actually are kind of similar to some other immigrants' experience, is that, losing the opportunities to learn and use, and then later on, trying to regain the skills, actually kind of as certainly as a challenge.
We have a question in the chat. Are the health cognitive benefits that were discussed also applicable for people who learn their second language as adults? For example, someone who moves to another country or becomes bilingual in their 30s and 40s.
Yes, I think those are late sequential bilingual, considered as a late sequential bilinguals. There are studies actually showing that the similar cognitive benefits in those bilinguals. But at the same time, that I also want to emphasize that there are some other struggles for those late sequential bilinguals as well. So you might have some kind of a benefit because you monitor two languages, switching two languages all the time, right? And then you have a better attention and better skills switching tasks, but at the same time that you also struggle with other things, right? So, like me, I struggle a lot sometimes. My fluency is not that fluent. I think it really depends on the date. So sometimes I kind of is not being able to come across as like, I have these skills, but it does have this kind of a skill. If you're looking at some of the research that we shows that bilinguals, even like late sequential bilinguals, actually they have better skills learning new words, which is like kind of a showing in my study a few years ago. I was looking at like language learning, learning new words. I was not really like focused on like cognitive benefits of bilingualism. But I actually recruited some of the late sequential bilingual who speak Spanish and English, and they actually pick up the new words much faster, much faster than monolinguals. So you see that the benefit actually you see in even like late sequential bilinguals.
I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.
Mm-hmm.